everybody, welcome to STONXCAST. My name's Ollie and today we're going to be having a look through track 1, Paroxysm, and track 4, Enter the Dojo, off of the new EP, Adapt and Survive. So this is track 1, this is Paroxysm. It's kind of a bit more chilled out, a lot of kind of synthy paddy stuff going on, and just one simple kind of break that builds up into 3 kind of progressively bigger drops. And this was quite a fun track to make, actually. I started this track all with this one sound, which is the Serenity plugin from Quiet Music. It was one of the free ones they gave away kind of mid this year. And this is where it all began, really. I was just messing around with that synth, and it's this. Is it? Or was it this? It was this one. So we just have a quick look at it and bring Serenity in here. It's a really nice, big, paddy, airy thing. It's a really fun one just to kind of build up that atmosphere, and that's where we started with this track. We just started with this big, long kind of pad sound, there's a few chords, and then from there we grabbed an absynth just to kind of build up some of this plinky plonky. And if I remember correctly, we just dragged the MIDI straight from Serenity into an absynth and started messing around with that. So then we got this kind of big old... and all those bird sounds there from Serenity in here. So that was really the bulk of this track. I'd done that, and then I grabbed one break up here. One drum break, which was, I think, this one here. And dragged out a full arrangement. I think there was that and maybe one of these stab basses. Boom. I think one of these guys. And that's pretty much all I sent to Ashima. It had none of these other plinky lines in it. It had none of these extra harmonies or anything. It was pretty much just this intro with this pad holding throughout the entire song, and then this bass, this one drum loop, and these pads. And this was pretty much all we had for the song, I think, at the start. Which I would argue is still kind of the majority of this track, really. It's just vibing that groove there, this kind of chord movements, and that douche, douche, douche. So I sent that one to Ashima, and he made all of these drums, and I think a lot of it is stutter edit and cutting up other bits and bobs. We've reinforced the kick drum up here. Few extra little bits. We've cut a few bits up and then just layered a bunch of these other breaks, which these ones are just completely stutto. Look, yeah, there's stutter edit on these ones. So it's just kind of broken, stuttery stuff, and you can see we've really high shelved it. We only want that stuff really fizzling at the top. Up here we've got some automation where we get this delay, which just the dry wet comes up and catches each of the following delays, and there's a bit of automation on the actual time. This is a great kind of little glitchy sound. So a lot of the excitement comes from these layers. These drums are pretty boring, standard kind of groove going on here. But these layers, and there's also one here, really just give that extra kind of bite and groove and transient movement. Couple of extra drops up here. That also builds up on this section. And it's just really kind of broken, cut up in a way that's not necessarily the full groove, and then that kind of slams us back into the groove. So you guys have probably seen from the other videos how we kind of do our routing. It's exactly the same here. So we've got our drums with all our drums, our hi-hats with our kick and snare sidechain to them, and they're getting sent off to our return tracks down here for drum bus 1 and 2. So let me just solo the drums and have a real listen to what's going on. Pretty much all the drops are the same. They just build up in intensity as we go. So this final drop here, you can see an extra bunch of the breaks have been added in, and that's just kind of crazy breakcore style. Really just kind of make everything really frantic at that end section. So have a quick blast through the drums in each of the sections. So the first drop where it comes in, we've got this. When it starts to build. Really just adding the intensity with each time, and the last one here we'll have a quick listen. And this is a trick we use all the time. Beats mode, transients, or set it to 8ths or 16ths, whatever. And we just bring these right down just to make it really kind of really short little choked notes. It looks like we've bounced it back here. That's why it's set like this. But you can see the notes are really short. Chick, 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 chick. And that's a real nice one just to turn what would be a big something like that straight down to really nice at the end of a song or a breakdown, just to kind of help calm things down a bit. So I'd say a lot of this track is the drums. It started off with one break, but we've done a lot of processing there to kind of get those big, chunky, choppy kind of snaps. The bass, as far as synthesized bass and distorted big old nasty bass, there really isn't too much in this one. We've got these big boys here. And this one. This have slightly different. This one's got a bit of overdrive on it, panned left and right just to give it that big wide. Then we've got this Reese underneath it. And a few extra notes. And that was all added just to give it a bit more movement, these extra notes. And that's all backed up down here by the sub bass at the bottom. A few extra little bits that come in. We've got these little blah-do-do-do kind of walkie down little bits. And that's purposefully kind of off note that was played in, and it just gives it a bit more groove. You can see where, if we were to tighten it all up where it should be, it's got this nice, especially within the groove of everything. It's just nice being slightly offbeat, just gives it a bit more of an authentic feel. We've got a few other bits and bobs coming in down here. We're just using the tube to completely destroy that, so it's just like this fuzzily, kind of goes with the hi-hats in that way, that kind of scratchy noises. And eventually we ended up buffing up the harmonies with a bunch of these kind of string instruments. And these are just straight from the Ableton packs. I think they sound really nice. Put some delays and stuff like that on them. In the intro we've got these coming in. And another harmony in here. This really starts to open up and give you this big emotive feeling before it just cuts out. Boom, then it comes in with the drop. So it's really nice. We ended up kind of messing with this and thinking, should we get it in time? Should we get it exactly, you know, 16 bars, 32 bars, whatever? But we kind of liked the loosey-goosey feel of it. So we kind of kept it this kind of odd, ooh, what's going on there? And then it bams into the drop. What else have we got going here? So during the actual drop itself, there's a couple of extra little strings and bits. You hear a little bit of the pumping happening from the sidechain there, so if you play that in context. So they're definitely not forefront, but it's there in the background, really just help giving that kind of that feeling. We can hear an infinite delay happening here. Where's this coming from? We've got a few of these nutty things going on around. Must be this one. This echo. So what's that from? Okay, so right at the end. Right, let's run through those couple of bits. Let's look at these chops and then we'll get onto the live bass. So we've got a few extra little choppy bits here. Stuttered stab. So we've got this one. vocal, and we're just using a frequency shifter to kind of pitch that down, an echo to give us the delays, and then we've also got the tal dub delay afterwards, just kind of helping out with that delayed kind of feel. Up here we've got this stuttered stab, which has just been reversed, manipulated. You can hear the beat warp mode that we've done with the kind of stuttering, and that goes throughout the whole track. Got extra little bits that get added here and there, another little bit at the end here. It's just one note cut up, sampled from something. And that one pitches down. Nasty little slide down here. And all those bits just kind of help texture everything up a good bit. So the last part of this song, really, after everything else was done, we felt like it was lacking a little bit of movement, and everything was there. It had some harmonies. So I ended up jamming over it on bass, and I came up with a bunch of bass lines that I ended up turning off. But we got this kind of nice progression. So when it first drops, it's just pure electric. The sub's actually singing a little line here, which is our little line from up here. Do 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 do. It's this one. And the sub's just kind of like vibing that the whole time. Boom, ba-doo, ba-doom. Everything else comes in with the stab. Gives it that kind of nice bit of movement, nice bit of kind of more like, you know, your kind of dub songs with the subs really kind of leading it forward. After all of that, where are we? Where is our bass? So our bass comes in around here. So we've got a really big fuzzy tone compressor. This is a free bass amp, Ignite amps. It's pretty decent for a nice bit of gritty warmth. Some echo, saturator, and a bit of weird EQ as always. And this is what we ended up with. And that's where a bunch of this kind of feedback from the echo comes in, which I really like. And backing up with that, we've got this little, I straight away just used right click melody to MIDI, which doesn't always work very well, but when it does give you some quite nice approximation of your notes. So I just used what the analog it gave me. Analog and electric is what it decided to give me. I didn't really bother messing around with it. I just let it do its thing. I did, however, have to change a few notes. So this just locks in with that bass line, and it's just the MIDI version of it. So So together with the live bass, it gets this really nice kind of much thicker, warmer feel to it. You still get that nice kind of down clack tick clack from the live bass, which is I think that makes a big difference in this track. So the second bass line after that, it moves on to this kind of bit more Tool inspired kind of thing. And I absolutely just saturated the shit out of this one. I think in the track, just the amount of distortion that was going on, it really kind of felt like it needed this big, warm. think that it creates some kind of nice syncopations with the breaky drums that are above. It's got that really nice tail that kind of just carries it through. There's a couple of extra little notey bits that are in here. This guy up here. And again, it's played in just to give it a bit more loosey-goosey feel rather than just straight away dun 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 dun. It's like got this nice ba-da-ba-dum kind of lead into it and stuff. So you can hear that the this little line up here leaves the space for the bass line. So you get the do-do-do-dum, then the do-do-do-do-do-do. So it creates this nice kind of little A-B. And then finally for the end, where we wanted it to go absolutely ballistic, I came up with this, mad slap bass line really is all you can call it. And it's the same as the other one. We've got glue compressor, SPH1, bit of echo, saturator and an EQ, although I doubled it and this one is just up an octave, so I just knocked it up an octave to kind of emulate an octave pedal, so that gives us the kind of higher line, helps it kind of push through a bit. I probably added a bit more distortion onto the higher version just to help it pop through a bit more. Oh, and some flanger as well. So if you have a listen to this line, this for me kind of really just finished this song off with a big bang really. It kind of just builds up and builds up to the third iteration, because we're not doing much. We've got an intro, drop, tiny break, same drop again with a few different elements, tiny break, same drop again with even more elements. So it's just a build up, this song really. So yeah, this crescendo at the end, this is the bass line that comes in. And that is that. We've got the other bass line running underneath it. So there's a little bit of harmonies with the tapping lines and the bree doo 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 doo. They kind of come in together. That bit's really nice there. And this last one. It just rocks out that bass line at the end over the last little section. So if you have a little playthrough just from that end bit. When there's two heavy bass lines finish, we have the little bum 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 coming back in. And we have these little pads kind of filling up those high end. And we end where we started with these first two pads. and the water and everything coming in from Serenity. So that is pretty much it for this track. It was a super simple one when we started it. It was just Serenity, Absinthe, and this one drum track up here. We ended up cutting a lot of it out, glitching a bunch of things up, and eventually it all came together with that bass line and the other kind of harmonies, the kind of walk in and out. This is totally not an arrangement I would usually do, or even Ashima for that reason, that matter. We usually complicate things a lot, and I think this one really worked for its simplicity. So yeah, that's Paroxysm. Let's open up Enter the Dojo. So this one was started by Ashima. He had the idea for the little Kyoto line or whatever it was, and he pretty much made the whole track, sent it to me as a finished arrangement, but the sections with the bass were kind of lacking a bit, and that's where I specialise, in making these kind of big old fatty basses and getting everything to gel together. So you'll notice it is the same template, always the same template. It looks like Ashima used Colossus to get the Kyoto sounds. I'm trying to move back to using all Ableton stuff, because we have a few old 32-bit plugins that we have to JBridge, and it's just not the best for performance generally. And with all the packs that we get now with Ableton, that's why I've been changing all my strings over to using the orchestral strings and orchestral brass. I don't really know if there's any Eastern instruments in there, which is probably why we still used the Kyoto from one of our old plugins. That was one thing that we did manage to do in the recent Black Friday sale, was change over our Oxford inflator for the new version, because that has been 10 years or something. So that's nice. That's made a big difference to our masters, I think, just being able to squeeze the final juice out of it. So this track is kind of a, Eastern inspired banger we were going for, really. Let's find the intro. What do we start off with? So we've got a bunch of effects. This is probably from Free Sounds, knowing James. Nice big gong. Can't go wrong with a gong. And then what we got up here? This one's off. Where do we start then? Where do we start? Let's just play and we'll see what's playing. There we are down here. So here we have this Kyoto line. And that it does a little A-B with this down here. I think they were just EQ'd slightly differently, just to kind of give them a bit of a different call and response kind of thing. Is this our sub here? I believe it is. So our sub comes in along with this gong sample. So we've got diddly. And that is the old trick. And you can see we've not actually frozen it here. So that's what the audio looks like. But actually, if we were to Control J it, you'd see that's all been chopped up by using this loop mode. And that's a little trick we use all the time, absolutely all the time, just to kind of give a bit of movement and a bit of difference to our tracks and our lines. So up here we've got a bunch of different pads and stuff. Let's see what's going on. So yeah, we had this Kyoto line down there, and I felt like it really needed one of these big shakuhachi. It just kind of goes hand in hand, right? The ding 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 plonkies with this kind of big kind of thing. So this pad up here, I don't actually remember how I made this one. I remember it was a lot of stuff. The fact that it says instrument means I probably grouped a few things as well. I think I had a, yeah, up here in my sidechain trigger, so it's not the actual drums, it's a separate trigger. I had that trigger in this kind of 3-3-2. That's what I call it anyway. We use that kind of rhythm all the time. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. Just seems to be like the drum and bass groove that we use in almost everything. And this one up here, is it doing the same? Not responding. Come on. This one's probably doing the same, just different octave. And that has the donk in it. So that's just really starting to reinforce this kind of dun dun dun, a nice melody backbone for everything. The shakuhachi has come in, and I've again used 2 just to kind of split it a bit. And a lot of these have been bounced down to audio just because the using the Colossus, because it's J-bridged, it uses a lot more CPU than it should. And if you have bits like this that haven't been frozen, it's probably because they were added in at the end. So what we've got here is just... So that takes care of the majority of the build-up, just in its own. The fact it starts with one note, it builds up to having octaves, one note and octaves, slowly builds up to having chords until it has full, full chordal movements. And that in its own just really spreads the whole sound up. We don't have to do any kind of trickery with pitch up. We're just using higher and higher notes to kind of build that up as it goes. And that really links in nicely with the... Kyotos and the shakuhachi and these other kind of boom, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum kind of building rhythms. And then we've got some big cinematic stuff up here, if I remember correctly. We've got this kind of... I love it when it kind of get this one sound morphing into another, so we kind of tried to get that there with this one doing the repeating and fade out, and this one fades in. I'm not sure if it filters in or just fades in. It might filter in even. You can hear the low notes fading, being filtered out of that as it goes up towards the break. So all in all, this kind of builds up to this. And into our drop. So have a quick look at the drums up here before we go into the drop section. So we have this kind of like pre-build version of our drums, and we've actually got a few different versions in this song. So the pre-build version, we have this D&B snare. We've got a lot of snares in this track. Let's come down to the beginning of them. So we've got this snare here, which kind of filters up in the intro. It's a bit boxy and weird, but that in addition with this one, it's like a oosh up the top. So them together you get this nice. And then we've got our third one here, which is the really clack. That's got a right high up kind of snap to it. So all together, those three. Nice bit of power, and it kind of goes right across the spectrum. We've got our ghost snares on another little channel here, and that is just really laboriously processing them and just doing the volumes. And this other little one, which is just a kind of offbeat guy with a big old echo on it. Just gives us a lot more space. Let's listen to all of these together. So these are our snares. And we removed it there just to give it a bit of space. You can see this extra hats come in here. That might have been why. I can't always tell you the methods of our madness. We see a lot of stuff's deactivated. When it comes to the mixing stage, I think it's really important not just to try and shoehorn everything you've got in there. Sometimes you've put things in and they just don't fit. Frequency rise. Once you start EQing other stuff, you might realise you've got stuff in there you don't need, and there might be some stuff missing. You have to add new stuff in. It's just kind of the way of the world. So the drums is another interesting one because we've got a bunch of different samples. Up the top here, we've got our filtered kick, which is our kind of our the one for the build up. So it's here. It's that heartbeat kind of thing, and that's just slowly opening up down the bottom here. Then we've got this kick down here, which is just another big boomer, really. And this is not for the main drop, bear in mind. This is just for this kind of intro feel. When we do get over to the drop, we jump over here, and I end up replacing it using kick 2 because it's got some great design you can do with it. Much more smack and punch there, you can hear that. And then with the snares as well, we change over to these two as the main snare, with kick 2 behind it. And now you've got that real low kind of 200 power hit on that snare. We've got all of our breaks and things as normal. Which just helps add some groove and stuff back to it. And then down here in our hats, all manner of chopped up stuff. So the only thing I'd say, if you're going to be doing a lot of this using old samples, drum breaks and stuff, just be careful with your EQing that you are getting rid of all that kind of low stuff. So all the bits you're adding on top are complementing it and not making it muddy. A bit of saturator always helps. and again auto filter just for movement, sweeping things up, sweeping things down. Kind of really helps you not have a static mix. So if we go over into the drop, we have all of our tasty basses. I think we could have done a bit better with this track with actually mixing everything in. It ended up being a bit of a, not a rush job, but we had different ideas when it came to the end of it of what basses should be in where, and we ended up with a massive wall of noise, which I think worked, but could have been tidied up a bit better. Oh well. So let's have a look at what we've got. We've got and that's being backed up by this one. So together we've got this. So that's kind of a nice main bit of the line, and I think this A-B call and response really does help with all of this kind of big heavy neuro-y stuff. So underneath we've got this guy. And we've just manually set the LFO rate to kind of speed up on the higher notes there. A few extra bits like here, we have this. And that didn't feel like it poked out enough, so we just added an extra synth in. So together you get this. Helps it poke out a bit more. Underneath this bass we have another bass. And together, all of these just kind of really add up to a buttload of noise. So we got a couple more just because, like I said, there wasn't enough. So I've got the MIDI here and pitched it all up 7 semitones. So this gives us a power chord between our normal bass line and this kind of harmonized version. And here when I turn it up, it sounds a bit nasty, but kind of getting that to fit in adds a good bit of thickness. And then at the bottom here, we've got one up an octave. So that's just going. And then these ones too, and this one at the top. So same thing again, we just used all these layers to kind of keep adding and adding and adding to that sound till it got just kind of obnoxiously crunchy. So this was just playing with the notes and really getting them to slide. Again, this was one where I played it in manually to actually get the feeling. So when you've got all these kind of movements, it's hard to get everything kind of locking in, but the movements that it does give you really does help to so this is what's doing that main movement. And if you're changing between the notes you kind of get this. So I'm trying to change note when it hits that kind of fourth. And that really kind of helps, just gives that unpredictability with the sound. A few extra bits on top. Simple little hitty bits. And what we got here. Just added more of those frequencies in. And again, copied it to all of these instruments down here. At the bottom we've got some resampled stuff, which is Ashima's kind of guitar-y stab bits. And then here. Just kind of a nice digga 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 running guitar stab line, and that just kind of comes nicely underneath the whole The hardest thing really with this track is once we'd made all of these different basses, we had our Kyoto and Shakuhachi and our kind of like our atmosphere created at the intro there. It was just trying to create enough drops that it kind of felt like it moved and it flowed and it had a kind of nice rolling vibe without being kind of... We were going for heavy with this one, and we ended up pretty much just doing drop, 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 just different riff. And it was quite a long time, if I remember, just actually... moving little notes and getting this to play. It's one of the things that I've started doing and I'm going to be doing more and more, and that is actually just learning these songs as you're writing them. If you play any instrument, guitar or bass, just kind of try and play along and you can figure out, oh, that doesn't work because it doesn't feel right to play. So after a while of messing around with this, we've got these three kind of solid riffs that all fit together quite nicely. And yeah, once we got that flow, it was just time to kind of move to the second half of the song. Change things up a bit, trying to keep the catchy riff going, pretty much. So we've got our... So it's back to that kind of cinematic dum dum da dum dum dum, and there's this little dun 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 line that Ashima had written, which is somewhere down here. I think it's one of these. That was one of the unsigned I added on. So here's a good little tip for you. If you're ever struggling to get something to poke through, maybe you've made it go too wide, or it's just not poking through your mix properly, getting an operator or just a nice simple, I think this was a square wave, and duplicating your melody and just having it bang in the middle. Nice short attack. And that's just a duplicate of this line, but I felt it really helps just kind of focus the... gives it a bit more central weight, which I thought was really necessary. I ended up duplicating the entire song just to give it that extra bit of frequency and space in the mix where I felt like it was kind of getting lost. So we got that nice little build up, and then up to our B section, which is just a more ragged out version really. Couple of extra instruments that come in just to kind of reinforce all those sounds that are already being reinforced. And and I've just duplicated the instrument here. What was this? It was one of the presets by the look of things. Might have changed a couple of bits, I don't know. Squelch bounce, but I've duplicated it, and one of them's knocked up an octave. It's just a trick I do all the time. So on its own, this sound would be, and I've added in, thickens it up a good bit. This really helps, I think, that section. Just give it something slightly different. And then we've also got our blue-doo-doo-doo-doo little line that comes in. Here's another version of that same line, and this time we took some of the audio and just completely messed with it in a sampler. It gave us this kind of trancey, and again it just helps fill out those frequencies. This little blah-da-da-da-dum. Was it here as well? And here you can see that these drop out. A few of these extra notes that are here drop out, these kind of additional bits, and we are just relying on the extra bits we've added in now, so it's just a small change. Roll it out at the end. CPU starts jumping around like mad. I probably could have done with bouncing a bunch of these down, but I didn't need to. And finally, onto the outro, we've just got a bit of the Kyoto line with a little bit of violin, pretty much. Little choppy bits. It's a couple of songs that we had down here for reference tracks, just to kind of help us with using the tonal balance control and some other bits like that. And also pink noise. I was trying out some pink noise mixing. It kind of worked a bit. So yeah, that's Enter the Dojo. It's a bit of a mad one, the amount of basses and everything going on in it. Like I say, the final mix probably could be a bit cleaner, but we're pretty happy with what we ended up with that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two about the way we run our projects. If you haven't seen our template before, I mean, really, we've spent all year working on this template to get it nice and powerful so that we can just worry about writing music and then doing the mixing and stuff at the end. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Let us know down below what your favourite track is. And yeah, I'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.